Welcome to Cinepolitics, I'm Faiza Ahmed. This week, Pablo Larrain's feature film No takes us back to the 1988 referendum in Chile. Bowing to international pressure, Augusto Pinochet was forced to legitimize his government. He was so convinced that he was going to win, he actually allowed the Chilean people to vote. Now, both the yes and no sides were allocated 15 minutes of airtime to voice their cases. Gael Garcia Bernal stars as Rene Saavedra, an advertising maverick heading up the No campaign. Now, despite political tensions, underhand maneuvers, despot henchmen, Saveedra is determined to free his people from oppression. No has become part of Larrain's unplanned trilogy and to date is the only Chilean film to have been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. So with the decision left to the people, will they vote yes or will they vote no? Let's take a look.
Nosotros creemos que el país está preparado para una comunicación de esta naturaleza.
¿Te ofrecieron la campaña, no?
Sí.
Con tus antecedentes familiares no debería haberte contratado nunca.
La oportunidad que tenemos de derrocar a la dictadura.
Vamos a sacar a Pinochet. ¿Un arcoíris?
Porque diga lo que diga.
Chile, la alegría ya viene.
Porque siento que es la hora.
Mi alegría, René, es distinta a la tuya. ¿Ah, sí? ¿Cuál es la mía?
Esto dejó de ser una campañita cuando pasó a ser materia de Estado. Déjelo que baile nomás.
Quédate acá, quédate acá.
Anoche no me lo de todo.
¡No, pero mi mujer!
No salgas solo.
Cara raja.
Con esto no vamos a ser famosos.
Joining me today to discuss No, we have Sergio Leon, a Chilean filmmaker, and Rich Klein, editor of e-zine Shadows on the Wall. Welcome to the show, both of you. Now, this film has been called Chile's version of Mad Men. It's had rave reviews from critics. Rich, what did you think of it?
Well, I mean, the only connection with Mad Men is that they're advertising people, so otherwise it's completely different. The thing that the trailer doesn't really show is that it's essentially a comedy about a very serious point in history, and it's very, very funny. It's packed with little witty touches all the way through it, running jokes. The characters are very lively and very funny, and we really get to know them over the course of the film. It's one of those rare films that manages to be kind of silly, but really deep and provocative at the same time. It's also shot like it's a found videotape. It looks like it was made in 1988. So it has this kind of grainy VHS quality that's very clever, especially in the cinema. It looks really good in the cinema. And it just has this, that adds a level of life to it. So it kind of brings the politics of the story out without it being ever heavy-handed about it. It's a really, really clever film, really entertaining.
Now, you mentioned the grainy effect that the filmmaker has used, and I think he used a U-matic camera from the 80s. Now, some people have said, yes, aesthetically it's worked, but commercially, will it match up to the, the fabulous digital productions we see nowadays?
Well, I mean, I think that, this is Larrain's decision was to make a film that looks like it was made in the 80s on a video camera. It's not even like film from the 80s. So I think it works because it takes you back to that time. If you remember what images looked like back then, it immediately takes you into that, and it feels like a handheld, kind of handmade little documentary almost. So it gives the whole film this charge of electricity where it feels much more urgent and real and kind of honest, and it breaks down that wall between you and the film, and I quite like that. I like films that kind of take a slightly daring approach to the way that they're made, and I thought it really worked with this one.
No, and you're right, you do feel like you're back in time. Sergio, what did you think of this film?
Well, for me, being a Chilean and living at the time of the dictatorship in Chile, the film portrayed pretty well what actually happened in that moment with the plebiscito. And I would say that I totally agree with you that rescue in a very humorous way something that was a very serious political matter in Chile. And to be honest, that I saw the film in Cannes Film Festival. I know Pablo Larrain, and we were talking about this new wave of filmmakers in Chile. The majority of them being trained abroad and going back to Chile after the end of the dictatorship. Therefore, the quality of the filmmaking in Chile is pretty good. Mm-hmm. It's a new vision. The filmmaking in Chile were all the time connected with politics, being totally destroyed during the dictatorship.
And let me just pause you there. Let's just set the scene for people. How did Pinochet abuse power during his time?
How?
Because we don't really pick that up from the trailer, like Rich said.
Yeah, well, the operation in Chile was absolutely terrible in the way that not only made people disappear, and we put us to be one of them, the 1 million of people being in exile. Even that one cameraman working with Guzman, one of the greatest filmmaker, Chilean filmmaker, he disappeared. Therefore, it was really tough for everybody. They started the repression in the working class area, and later on.
And you were in exile yourself. I'm going to pause you there. We're going to come back to your story. Let's move on to our next clip, where we see Saveedra talking to his boss, Lucas Guzman, who's working on the Yes campaign.
Mira, tú vivís tranquilo con tu hijo, tenés casa propia, un deportivo del año, de la despensa llena. Nadie te ha tocado un pelo desde que llegaste. Seamos socios, po, ¿Te ofrezco un tanto por ciento a la agencia?
¿Usted quiere que no haya jefe? ¿Por qué? Me está amenazando de la misma manera que me está ofreciendo ser socio.
¿Qué tal? Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien.
¿Todo bien?
¿Todo bien?
Plato una maravilla, ¿no?
Sí, sí, también.
Estamos esperando, ¿eh? Listo. No, estamos... Cuando nos digan. Me está ofreciendo ser socio.
¿Sí? Un porcentaje importante.
Yo esto lo voy a hacer de todos modos.
Esa campaña.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Qué bueno que tú estés acá.
Gracias.
Vamos al tiro.
Sí, estoy acá, pero todo está súper bien todo.
Bien, excelente, gracias.
Bien.
Esa fue un suicidio, no sé, imbécil.
Échame. A ver, vamos a primera.
Ándate.
Perdón, a posición final. Échame.
Ándate.
Échame tú.
Ándate.
Échame.
Ándate.
Dale, échame.
Concéntrate, bueno, te estoy ofreciendo algo importante.
Muy bien, aquí terminamos. Perfecto, está perfecto. ¿Qué cosa?
Una cuenta importante. Televisión Nacional. Anda a hablar con la rota chica. ¿A dónde está la otra?
Está acá. Está muy bien, ¿eh? Está perfecto. ¿Está funcionando?
Sí.
¿Ah, sí?
El pollo.
¿Sabes qué? Cuidado, leí que cuando te acercas demasiado causa radiación.
Es más de lejos.
Sí, un poquito lejos. No se lo digas ahí. Creo que no está muy segura.
That little remark about the radiation always makes me laugh. And though it's a very serious scene, we've got Guzman, who is Rene's boss, and he's obviously working on the Yes campaign. And then Rene is heading up the No. And he seems to be aware of what Rene is up to. How realistic is that? I mean, would the two have been working together in real life back in 1988?
In a way, yes, because it's just a campaign of publicity. That everything is connected with publicity. That depend the product, sometimes depend the amount of money that they are putting in. In the No campaign, there were a lot of money that people that before that were supporting the dictatorship. But at the time, in one moment, they realized that the dictatorship was doing much damage to the Chilean society than they thought before. Therefore, even those people that were opposed to President Allende, Socialist President Allende, they start putting money into this kind of campaign. And there was like a mixed collaboration between people from, not only from the left that originally been drawn all this, is people from the Christian Democrat Party as well that they have pretty good money, and they were putting this because the prestige of Chile at that time was really very bad internationally. Other thing I would like to make a remark about this when you are talking about the Yes and the No. the people in Chile, because there was very strong dictatorship, the thing is that play in favor a little bit of this no campaign, because they didn't know as much we knew outside the country how much the secret police was doing the killing, the torture, or all these nasty things from the regime. Therefore, they were not that scared as we were outside knowing everything that was going in Chile. Therefore, that this mixture of people working for the no was absolutely full range of the Chilean society. Even that people that got a lot of money, owner of a factory, they reached a point, as even that United States government reached a point that was absolutely necessary to end the dictatorship.
So then, we're speaking of the US government, who we know backed the coup that, I guess, overthrew Allende in the 70s. During the campaign, there's a scene in the film where you've got the guys who are heading up the Yes campaign. You know, they're talking about the US government and they're saying, oh, well, we're sure they're on our side. I mean, is that the case? Who were the US backing during this campaign period? Because we know after the '88 referendum, the relations between the US and Chile have still remained strong, which I think is bizarre, given that they backed a coup that brought in Pinochet that created atrocities in Chile. I mean, Sergio, what do you think?
Well, there is a statement from one of the top commander of the School of Americas, where all the officers from Latin America, they go to be trained by the Army force in the United States. He said that we train officers from the Army in Latin America, even we know that they have been violating human rights.
Sergio, I'm going to pause you there. We're going to come back and talk about the human rights abuse. Let's move on to our next clip where we see Saveedra being intimidated by Pinochet's henchmen.
Carmen. ¿Qué hace, Carmen?
¿Qué están haciendo aquí, cabros? ¿Por qué no se van a dormir mejor? Váyanse a dormir, este es un barrio de gente decente.
Vaya a acostarse, señora.
¿Dónde acostarte, vieja culea?
Mocoso.
Okay, so we've seen Gael Garcia Bernal, who's had rave reviews about his performance, and he's there with his son Simon. Initially, we see that Rene is quite, I guess, reluctant to join the No campaign. Why do you think that was, Rich?
I think, well, mainly it's because his boss is in charge of the Yes campaign, and the film cleverly sets up this level of irony all the way through it. And it's also, there's the running gag about the microwave oven that he has to also sell, and you can see that he's terrified of microwave ovens. And so he's got this whole thing where he wants to work for No campaign, but his boss is on the Yes campaign. So he's quite reluctant to do it. He's also afraid that the government's not going to allow him to say whatever he wants to say. So there's this lovely sense of kind of irony all the way through the film. And then I love the fact that he comes at it saying, you know, the people of Chile have been terrorized for 15 years. We can't sell the No campaign on fear. We can't say, oh, we've got to get rid of Pinochet because he's a horrible man. We have to sell them on happiness. And so you have the opposite approach to what you would expect them to do, or what most of the political campaigns now do in our country. He takes the opposite approach, and then he has an experience like this, where he firsthand faces that kind of fear. And then you see that his maid goes out there, and to her it's just, she just takes it in her stride, and then she just thinks, oh, you brats, you idiots. Yeah. And yet she does understand what's going on. It's a really clever balance of the horrors of the situation with the everyday reality of it.
And speaking of the horrors of the situation, what tactics were the Yes campaign willing to deploy to, I guess, disrupt the No achieving success?
Yeah, well, they were willing to kind of do these sneaky backhanded things. They also stole their ideas. There's all this back and forth in the film where they're constantly trying to one-up each other, because they have this 15-minute slot, and they're constantly trying to catch each other off guard and do something that the other one hasn't thought of yet, and all these backroom kind of sneaking around. It's just a really clever film. It's really good fun to watch too. So.
Now, Sergio, Pinochet's ghost after 1988. I mean, does it still haunt Chile?
Of course. Unfortunately, the situation in Chile, Pinochet left, but his constitution is still there, and the constitution was made tailor-made for the extreme right-wing people, and to favor not the whole Chilean welfare, but only one section of our society. Therefore, that make even the new generation. This year is 40 years of since the dictatorship. The new generation is still suffering the consequence of that missing period of time, not only for them, but also for their parents that are going into exile, going back to Chile, and at the same time, the fear that being created throughout that period of time was absolutely atrocious. Therefore, until now, there is still a psychological impact. When I go to Chile and I see my friend, we are totally different in our mind and the way that they were totally subdued in their thought for so many years that they were even...
And I think you're talking about the 1980 Constitution, but we're going to come back to you. Let's pause there. Let's move on to our final clip, where we see a scene from the rally organised by the No campaign, but it seems that the Yes side has other things on mind. Okay, so after the 1988 referendum, Pinochet stepped down as president, but he continued to be the head of the military till approximately 98. And then after that, he became a senator for life. I mean, they're vile scenes, so we know he's responsible for things like that. Why did the likes of Reagan and Thatcher continue to have good relations with him, Sergio?
That it was part of their own constitution, that they wrote that I'm going to be head of the army for this period of time, no opposition. And at the same time, when he was appointing himself with his associated political people, he said that I'm going to be a senator, designated senator. Well, at the end, that everybody had to accept it because it's in the constitution.
How did that make you feel, though? As a Chilean who had to leave his country, you left 4 years after the coup. How did that make you feel?
No, I left 4 months after the coup.
4 months after the coup?
Yes. The thing is that there are many things, after 40 years, there are a lot of things that is absolutely necessary to change in Chile. That is, Chile has been transformed into a market of neoliberalism, where is absolutely the principle of friendship, the principle of to help each other, the people is totally lost. Now is just concerned about the amount of money you have in your pocket, and is consuming society. They don't know how to get out from this cul-de-sac they have at the moment in Chile. Therefore, the people is getting really very depressed in the way any solution being given at this very moment, even from people from the left, that they say La Alegría will come again, like was the publicity before. Unfortunately, the people is not believing it anymore. And that is the consequence that the new generation in Chile go onto the street, the student doing a strike.
And we saw that with the student protest. Now, Rich, quickly want to move on to you. Does this film, do you think, have the power to draw in a mass audience?
I think it does because it's very cleverly made. It's got a star like Gael Garcia Bernal in it. It also is not just a story from Chile. It's an entertaining film, but the story resonates really strongly on a lot of layers. And I think it will resonate with anybody who's feeling kind of frustrated by governments, which most of us are. And what do you do about these things? It takes kind of a positive approach toward change in a really horrible situation. And it's a really hopeful film, and it is one that you can really engage with on a very strong level. I hope people go see it. I really hope it gets out there and gets seen. It might be one of these films that people will catch up with on videotape when they, or on digital downloads when it pops up on their screens.
Okay, well, we've heard it from Rich, so it's definitely worth the view. I've run out of time today. Thank you to both my guests, and of course to all of you at home. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so by emailing us at cinepolitics@presstv.co.uk, or you can join our Facebook fan page. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.